Oh my, he was my love. He was my high school boyfriend. I remember that day like it was. This isn't the prettiest time of year to film, but I love it. You never know what's coming. One thing is for sure, spring is here.
I will make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really break too easily, but I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. Oh, so give me your all. I'll take it tomorrow. So I stick like glue inside your mind. Just watch me breaking your sphere. You're falling into me, touch me. I swear you will do anything that I want. So keep us awake till the dawn. Ooh, baby, feel free.
Hey everybody, I am so happy to see you today. Thank you so much for coming back and seeing me and Desi. I hope you had a good, safe week. And thank you, a special thank you to so many of you who watched Desi's video this week. I had so much fun filming that, and I thought I would get about, 50, 60 views. And you made it kind of a little hit on my channel, so thank you so much. I just love it that I think you love Desi almost as much as I do. So I wanted to keep it light today. You know, there's so much sorrow, sadness in the world, so I thought we would just do something totally goofy today. And I've been seeing these videos around talking about my first time doing this and my first time doing that. And I looked at some of the questions and I thought, well, that doesn't apply to me. So I altered them. And I made them a little spicy because, you know, that's how I roll, right? Kind of. I think it's going to be fun. And I'm hoping by the end of the video, some of my answers might spark some of your memories. And you might answer a few of these too. So let's get right to it. Let's start talking about our first time. The first question is, do I still talk to my first love? And the answer is no. But I still talk to my first husband. Does that count? No? Okay. Well, my first love was a handsome boy that I met when I was 10 years old, and he was in the 4th grade with me. He was the most popular boy in grade school. He looked like Paul McCartney. And he didn't know I was alive until I turned 12. I got a bra. Anyway, he burned my name into his arithmetic book, so I knew, I was in like fun with him. We parted ways. It didn't work out. Wonder why? Well, it haunted me all through high school. It really did. I really liked him, and we never could really be the friends we could have been. So I was kind of getting over it, and then all of a sudden, in the 80s, I turned on one of those mini movies, and it was called The Blue and the Gray. So there's my first love, and he's the star of this mini series, and he became an actor, and he was in movies and TV, and I couldn't believe it. And anyway, he left acting. He's now an attorney, but I've kind of looked for him, but I can't find any information. If I ever find him, I want to talk to him. Yeah, he was a great guy. He was my first love. What was the very first thing I did this morning? Well, number one, I took Desi out because, Desi's my priority. And the second thing I did, you didn't ask, but I'll just throw it out there. I checked my email. I always do it, and I don't know why. What am I expecting? Like the Pope is going to email me like, hey, what are you doing for lunch? I don't know, but it's this obsession I have. I have to check my email 5,000 times a day. What was my very first automobile? And I tell you what, it was 1979 and I bought a 1975 Chevy Impala. It was a beauty. I mean, it had 93,000 miles on it, but who's counting, right? I loved it. And I didn't get a driver's license until I was 24 years old. So for my first car, I was on cloud nine.
I won't make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really.
When was the first time I really kissed a boy? And I can remember this like it was yesterday. I was in kindergarten, and there was this boy named Randy, and he was a year older than me. And he would come to school not looking like any of the other boys. I think he thought he was Frank Sinatra Jr. I mean, we're in kindergarten, first grade, and he has like a trench coat and a little tie and a hat kind of, crooked on his head. And I was just kind of fascinated by him. All the girls were, but, he just he pretended he was smoking. He was like little Frank Sinatra Jr. on the playground. I kid you not. One day he grabbed me, threw me in the barrel, and just kissed me all over. And I never forgot it, and I just thought, Frank Sinatra's kissing. Of all the questions in this sweet little survey, I think the next question threw me more than any of them. And the question is, when is the first time you felt proud of yourself? And I really had to think about this. There is no one time in my early childhood that I can remember where I felt proud of myself. And I remember my childhood, every inch of it, every second of it. I remember, but that escapes me. The first memory that I have of feeling truly proud of myself, I was in 10th grade. I was in art class, and I had drawn a beautiful sketch of a musical artist that I loved at the time that I would later meet and hang out with. But I had no idea. I was only 16 years old when I sketched him, and it was of Arlo Guthrie. And I was so proud of that sketch, and the teacher held it up. She said I should have it framed, and the respect of my peers at that time, it meant the world to me. And I never became an artist, and I really don't sketch now. I don't paint. But at that moment in time, it was everything, and I loved it, and I felt so proud when I looked at that beautiful sketch. I wish I still had it. What was the very first airplane ride I ever took? Well, my first was to a destination that was my last. I flew from Grand Rapids to New York a lot. I worked in New York. I was a young musician, so I was playing festivals. I was working with a record company. I was playing bars. So I did do a lot of flying back and forth from Grand Rapids to New York. Who was your first grade teacher? Well, my first grade teacher was named Miss Betts, and she looked just like Sylvia Plath, if you know who Sylvia Plath is. I mean, I honestly think she was Sylvia Plath. I mean, I don't know how Miss Betts got away with it, but she was a writer, she was a poet, she was a dreamer, she was wonderful. But she would say to the class, okay, everybody, get out your arithmetic books. So we'd get out our books and thinking, oh, good, we're going to, solve problems. But no, she'd say, all right, before we solve some problems, let's write a poem about the number 5. Really, she would. No matter what subject she was trying to teach us, she'd always ask us to write a short story or a poem about it. It was amazing. And I honestly think that through her quirkiness that I gained a true love of poetry and literature, something that I would carry with me all my life. Who was my very first best friend, and do I still talk to that person? And yes, I do still talk to Ellen. I met Ellen when I was in second grade. We were the same age, and she came from a household where her mother was divorced and she lived with her grandmother. I came from a household where my mother was divorced and I lived with my grandfather. So we were a match made in heaven. She was brilliant. She was so smart, still is. And she was funny and witty, and we would sit around, during the afternoon, and instead of playing dolls, we'd be writing the great American novel. She became extremely successful. She became a Washington lobbyist, and she worked on a lot of political campaigns. She married a fantastic Washington lawyer and has an amazing life. And she's also a painter. So, yes, we still do talk. Our lives were so completely different. But the love is still there. We always say to each other, thank you for helping me survive my childhood. Yeah. What was the very first musical concert you ever went to? And oh boy, 1965, Civic Auditorium, Grand Rapids. There was a show on TV called Shindig, and it was all the rage, and they took the show on the road. And Jerry and the Pacemakers were the headliners, and Ellen and I were 10 years old, right? Well, we took the bus downtown. We get there and we are having the time of our life. Jerry and the Pacemakers, these guys were from Liverpool. They knew the Beatles. We were losing our minds. We were having such a good time. And Jerry is singing away. And this is Grand Rapids, the 60s, very conservative, right? So like at 10 o'clock, the stage manager starts pulling the curtain down on Jerry while he's singing. Well, Jerry, he's a Liverpool lass, right? He was having none of that. So he walked over and he slugged the guy. And we're going crazy. And we're 10 years old. And a riot breaks out. It's a rock and roll riot. And everybody's fighting, and there's food flying, and Jerry's getting punched, and he's throwing punches, and the drummer is beating with people. Our mothers are at home, and they hear the news that there's a riot at the Civic Auditorium, and their 10-year-old little girls are there right in the middle of it. It was the best concert I have ever gone to. No concert will ever top Jerry and the Pacemakers, Ellen, Shindig. The next question is, what is the first movie I ever saw in a theater? And I think it's kind of a toss-up. I think I was 5 and I saw 101 Dalmatians. Loved it. And I also saw West Side Story in a theater. And I was mesmerized. I was glued to my seat. The singing, the songs, the dances. I remember the handsome George Chakiris, and he was dancing, and I thought he was so dreamy and so handsome. But it was the songs and the lyrics. And on the way home, I was riding with my family, my mother, my uncle, my grandfather, and they all hated the movie. And I loved it. I wouldn't stop talking about it. And then they stopped bad-mouthing it because they realized I loved it so much. I used to think of my life as an ocean. Now I think of it more as a river, something that keeps moving, forging a new path.
hoping to survive.
Every woman has a first time, a first experience, a first love. And how that goes does shape her attitudes and her feelings going forward with the man she would ultimately marry. And, my first time, I was 14 years old. I was madly in love with my boyfriend. We were going steady. We went steady for 2 years. He was a year older than me. Beautiful young man with a heart of gold. And he loved me and I loved him. So it wasn't anything, cheap or a stranger in the back seat. Not that I'm putting anybody down for that. It's just that was not my story. That was not my experience. I loved him. I loved him for so many reasons. And he was a bad boy. But not so much with me. In fact, he was never, ever disrespectful. He never said an unkind word to me. And we would dream and fantasize of when we would get married. And I do remember we'd been going out for a really long time, and he was coming over that day in June. It was such a beautiful day. I remember that day looking out the window and seeing him walking down the street towards my house to pick me up. And, we didn't have cars. We were just kids. But the song on the radio was Stevie Wonder, My Cherie Amour. And it was like magic. And I saw him and I threw my arms around him. And, well, one thing led to another. And there we were. And it was wonderful. It was magic. I didn't really understand it. I certainly had no skill. But it was love, and it felt like love, and it felt tender and sweet. And when it was all over, I remember I said to him, now you didn't do anything like that would cause me to be pregnant, right? And he said, oh, no, I've got that covered. No, we're safe. Oh, yeah, we're safe. I tell you what, 6 months later, I did end up pregnant. And he stood by me. He never said, oh, that's not my baby. He begged our families to let us get married and raise our child. He couldn't have been more of a man. And he was only 15 years old. But my mother wouldn't allow it, and we gave our baby up for adoption. Years later, our baby, Sean, my oldest son, he did find me and we did reunite. And within 6 weeks of me finding Sean and Sean finding me, I called Ronnie, and he was so excited to meet his son finally. He never married. He never had any other children. But within weeks of Sean being in our life, Ron died of pneumonia. He died in his parents' attic of pneumonia. He was only in his 40s. So he never met his son. But that experience taught me that my relationship with a man had to be based in love, in respect, in dedication. I'm not sure anybody loved me quite as much as that young boy.
I love it here. I love that I moved here. It was scary, but it turned out so well. If I ever move again, I want to make sure I always come back here.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I loved every second of it. And if you get a chance down below, can you answer a few of these my first time questions? Desi's thrilled about the whole thing. Please have yourself a wonderful brand new week. And when you're done with your week, please come back and see me and Desi, okay? Okay. It's a deal. We'll be here.
Desi, what do you want to do today? Desi, can I ask you a question? How come you're so messy?
I will make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really break too easily, but I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. Oh, so give me your all. I'll take it tomorrow. So I stick like glue inside your mind. Just watch me break.